This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 112. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's episode, we've got a ton to get into. What will happen to Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy? What's going on with Jimmy Uso? Did Kofi Kingston actually re-up with the WWE? Oh my goodness, craziness. And was there a massive injury at TLC? Of course, we're going to cover TLC. We're going to give you our review of that. NXT, AEW, Smackdown, Raw, all of it's coming at you next. And doing it with me as always. He's the one, he's the only. He is the man who beat the man to become the man. He is my cousin and yours. He is the one, the only, the Doc, John Macron. What's up, cuz?
Woo, a lot to get to this week, cuz. TLC was... Look, a pay-per-view that was put together hastily. It's not the same pay-per-view that it was. I mean, do you recall now?
It used to be special.
2 years ago, it was Finn Balor, AJ Styles. Nothing lived up to that this year, but there were some good moments. All in all, I'm just happy that I defeated you in the Calling the Card. And,
oh my God, you smoked me.
I did.
You crushed me.
But, to be fair, I'm only hitting 50% of the matches. You know why? Because everything's so unpredictable. It's so hard when you check out these angles and things like that. But at the end of the day, the way I'll describe it is, it was a pay-per-view that had decent wrestling, but at the end of the day, because of the quick build-up, you didn't really care a whole heck of a lot about what the results were, because it didn't seem like anything had real massive impact. There were, though, two moments that I think a lot of people were excited by. It's great to see the new Orange Cassidy now in the form of Daniel Bryan. You see the side-by-side? If you put glasses on that picture... Daniel Bryan now kind of looks like Orange Cassidy.
Well, the funny thing is, Daniel Bryan looks more like Daniel Bryanson. So if you watched ROH early on, Daniel Bryan right now looks like a 20-year younger version of himself. It's fantastic. The guy has aged so well. And I think that was probably the biggest pop of the night from TLC. Before we get into TLC, though, let's review SmackDown. And honestly, it was a really sad setup for TLC. Again, like you said, TLC, not the pay-per-view it once was. I think the build for it, not really the build that you would expect for a major pay-per-view from WWE. Honestly, the best match was the main event where the New Day defeated Baron Corbin and Dolph Ziggler via disqualification. This set up what was supposed to set up a Ziggler-less match between Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin. And that ended up spilling into Sunday. And let's just kind of give a quick recap of TLC, and then we can talk about some of the finer moments from TLC. I think we both agree on what the highlight of this pay-per-view was. In the pre-show, we had an outstanding match between Carrillo, who defeated Andrade. An upset Andrade left Zelina Vega at ringside, which I feel is setting up a tenuous split between these two. So there's some nice storytelling there and some build going on. In a fantastic match, the New Day defeated the Revival to retain the Smackdown Tag Team titles. In another solid match, and probably the best match of the night, was Aleister Black defeating Buddy Murphy. We ended up having a double countout for the Raw Tag Team belts as the Viking Raiders and the OC slugged it out. Now, you go from having 3 really quality matches to kind of a clunker here. Baron Corbin ended up defeating Roman Reigns with a lot of help from a zigzag from Ziggler and a shatter machine from the Revival. So like I said, we had this build on SmackDown that never really came to fruition on Sunday night with the pay-per-view. Now, Bray Wyatt, to nobody's surprise, defeated The Miz. But what we ended up getting was the old Daniel Bryan. If you go back and you look, he looks like he looked 15, 20 years ago. It was outstanding. I think this was probably one of the moments of the night, if not the moment of the night. We did have Lashley defeat Rusev in what we'll just call a match. I don't think it was anything special. And the Kabuki Warriors defeated Lynch and Charlotte Flair in what you could call a disjointed and messy match. Coming out of this match, we may have a serious injury that we'll discuss in our notes and news section.
I think the disappointing aspect was I was kind of surprised that Kairi Sane kind of looked like she didn't belong in the mix. Mm-hmm. And when you're a professional wrestler and you're working with top agents and you got to put together a match, you can't look like you don't belong in the ring, especially with the women's movement where it's at right now. You can't go in there and have matches that are less than stellar, especially when you have Becky Lynch and you have the likes of Charlotte Flair. You got to go out there and carry your weight. You got Asuka and you got Kairi Sane, and it just didn't look right.
Yeah.
It was kind of a very disappointing match, and it was kind of a pay-per-view main event where you go, that's how you end it? That's kind of the time you give it? That's the way the match was put together? It left everybody kind of just going, really? And then you had all the chaos that kind of ensued around it. It just was a lackluster ending to kind of an overall lackluster pay-per-view that I would grade a C.
I really believe you could move this main event to the spot where you had Bray Wyatt and The Miz feuding. So just move this up 2 slots and move Bray Wyatt's match down 2 slots. And I think you would get a better overall pay-per-view because you'd be closing it out with something that everybody would be left talking about. Daniel Bryan coming back, to me, was the moment of this pay-per-view. It is the one thing you will take away from this pay-per-view, and it's the one thing that you can look back on and you can really build a good, interesting story from. Otherwise, like you said, I thought this was a total lackluster pay-per-view. Didn't necessarily deserve anybody's time when you really broke it down. Going to the predictions, I got smoked. You absolutely crushed me.
50%. Woo!
I lost 4-2. You get another point. So now you go up 2-0 on me in the prediction segment. If you recount, we went back and we reset everything since we've introduced AEW. And I believe we're going to be doing some of their pay-per-views and giving predictions on those when we do these shows together. So right now I am behind by what is probably a wide margin, 2-0, because these are always very close. For the preview for SmackDown, so what you're going to get tonight, we're going to get some more fallout from Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt. I think we're all really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be excellent. We should also be on Sheamus watch. It seems like Sheamus will be coming back either this week or possibly next week, so we should all be on a Sheamus watch. And expect some Bayley and Lacey Evans storyline here. I'm seeing this continuing. We got no match at TLC between these two. I expect to see this kind of continue this week on SmackDown. Now, I think Raw was a little bit of a better show than what we got with SmackDown and what we got from this pay-per-view. Now, Raw kicked off with Seth Rollins and AOP addressing the Raw universe, and basically he let everybody know that if they don't comply, AOP will make sure that they comply. I thought this was a solid segment. I thought Seth Rollins came off pretty genuine. I feel like Seth Rollins plays this character of kind of being this weird narcissist who's totally unsure of himself. It's really a complicated role when you get down to it. And I think he did a fantastic job really building on this and building on years of a character that has grown sour with most fans. And I thought the addition of AOP really helped sell this.
I love when he said, look, I'm here to take names, and if anybody has a problem with it, AOP behind me is going to take care of my business. And I thought that was perfect. I thought, okay, you now have this group that's going to go out there, and it was good because they teased it because they said, watch us and pay attention to what we're going to do later on tonight, which I thought was a great way to open Raw.
Yeah, it was a nice tease because it kept you hooked. And you didn't actually get the end of that hook until much later in the show because I'm going to be honest with you. After this segment, Raw really felt like a clunker to me. It really slowed down, it geared down, and it wasn't until you got probably midway through Raw where we had a really good 5-man gauntlet match for the right to challenge Rey Mysterio for the United States Championship. I thought it didn't really pick up until this time. And it kicked off with R-Truth and Akira Tozawa. Then it was followed by Ricochet. Matt Hardy was in the mix, and Humberto Carrillo was there as well. In the end, you had Carrillo defeating Ricochet, but Carrillo was attacked in such a devastating manner by Andrade, signifying that feud isn't over yet. And look, this was a fantastic match that leads to a really open-ended story that now I'm invested in. And it's for 3 guys. It's not just 2 guys, it's 3 guys, because Rey Mysterio is involved in this as well. So now you got Carrillo, you got Andrade, and you've got Rey Mysterio. And I think you can do a lot of different things here with this storyline. And you can really build out both of these characters, or all 3 of these characters. I mean, you know what you have with Rey Mysterio, but Andrade's in this weird spot where he was given a nice push. It really didn't go anywhere. He kind of fell to the back, and now he's getting another push, and he looks like a killer right now. It's exceptional. And then you've got this young, bright star in Humberto Carrillo, who I think everybody's behind and everybody's been really, really impressed with. Now, what do you do with this storyline that Carrillo and Andrade have? And now you get to sprinkle in a little bit of Rey Mysterio. I think you could really have something really, really nice here. After this, Carrillo was stretchered out. Rollins addresses Rey Mysterio with a pipe in his hand. Basically, Rollins is taunting Rey, and then he lets AOP destroy him. While Rey's laid out in a heap, Rollins ends up telling him that he would spare him this one time, but he owes him one. And you can see this, like the true dicky nature of Seth Rollins at this point. And it's just kind of getting woven into this storyline here. And I think this is fantastic storytelling by WWE. We crush WWE a lot for their bad job with creative, for their bad job with storytelling. And I think this is a really nice job of developing this character that Seth Rollins is playing. Because you can see he's kind of a jerk, and it works. It really does work. I was impressed with this.
No doubt about it. I think that if Seth Rollins is going to be a main event player, he's got to be a heel, and the inclusion of AOP is what I think a lot of fans are looking for, is that, hey, you have a tag team that can be predominant and can be the muscle. And look, an underrated aspect of Monday Night Raw is the inclusion of Samoa Joe on commentary. He does a great job building people up. At the same time, I think he made a comment early on in the intro promo where he said, look, I hurt people for a living. That's just me. He goes, AOP, they're ruthless. And the way in which he said it really set the tone for what this group will be. And so kudos to Samoa Joe. I think he's been a great addition so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is something that Samoa Joe has. He's great on a mic. He's a great physical dominating presence. And you're right, he does a really, really good job on commentary. He does a fantastic job. We ended up wrapping Raw up with what I would consider a fantastic pay-per-view quality match between AJ Styles and Randy Orton. This was a fantastic match with a lot of great in-ring psychology coming from Randy Orton. You had a lot of explosive moves, and you had some nice back and forth between the 2 competitors. In the end, Orton called for the RKO, but Styles ended up countering. He tried for the calf crusher, but Orton escaped. So now you got this back and forth, like who's going to win this match? You're starting to look at your watch, like as we're winding down, like, oh no, the pinfall's coming soon. Styles ends up setting up for the phenomenal forearm, but Orton catches him in midair with an RKO for the win. Now, after the match, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows get in the ring. They end up beating up Randy Orton. The Viking Raiders come down to make the save. This is stemming off of what happened at TLC. The OC ends up gaining the upper hand and end up standing strong as we close out the show. I thought this was a really nice way to close Monday Night Raw. You had a fantastic match between AJ Styles and Randy Orton. Also, you mixed in some mid-card guys, right? I don't care what you think about the Viking Raiders, and I don't necessarily care what you think about the OC. These are mid-card guys. They get the a little bit of the rub by being with primetime players like AJ Styles and Randy Orton to close out a Monday Night Raw. This was fantastic. I thought it was a really good utilization of a couple guys who don't necessarily get the time that they deserve.
Look, man, early on, they butchered the War Raiders in terms of the name change and switching up their name. But now, in terms of when their music hits, you get pumped. And that's what you got to do is that, look, you move on from mistakes. Viking Raiders, I can't wait to see how they continue to go through the tag team division there. And I just think that with WWE, the problem is obviously in terms of the emphasis. When teams come up from NXT, it just doesn't seem like the tag team division has been given the time or the space needed to evolve these characters, and just feels like, okay, your peak time, your peak moment is your debut. You get maybe one angle, and then the rest just kind of falls to shit as the likes of AJ Styles and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens get all the spotlight. They really can highlight the tag team, and really at this point in time, if they just one improvement Raw can make is if they just give the tag teams an opportunity. Gallows and Anderson, Viking Raiders, AOP. You have talent there. It has to be emphasized going into 2020. It has to be.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And this is, I think, something that separates WWE from AEW. AEW emphasizes tag team wrestling. AEW makes it a point. There was even a promo on this week's AEW where they talked about how tag team wrestling is a real thing, and it's an important thing. So I think you need this because it's an important part of wrestling. Tag team wrestling is important, and it does a couple of different things. If you go back through the history of tag team wrestling, you get some of your best individual superstars out of tag teams. It's a great way for them to lay a foundation and to kind of work through some of their shortcomings until they become a much better wrestler. Shawn Michaels is one of the best wrestlers that we've ever had in the history of pro wrestling. And Shawn Michaels started off as a tag team wrestler with Marty Jannetty. I remember they were my favorite. They were one of my absolute favorite tag teams when they were the Rockers. And when Shawn Michaels was coming up, there were a few things that he lacked. He just didn't have. And him being paired with Marty Jannetty really helped kind of round him out and shape him a little bit. Marty Jannetty the same way. Marty Jannetty wasn't ever great on a microphone, but Shawn Michaels could talk his way in and out of a door like you've never seen before. So they helped complement each other with their strengths and their weaknesses here. And in the end, Shawn Michaels was obviously the star of that group, and he was the one who, like I said, rounded out a little bit faster, and some of those rough edges came off much quicker. And what you ended up getting was a fantastic superstar in Shawn Michaels. Let's transition over to NXT. NXT, we ended up kicking off with the NXT Championship, Adam Cole versus Finn Balor. This was a fantastic match, absolutely fantastic. Adam Cole ends up defeating Balor by pinfall to retain his championship. This is going to set up something interesting going forward. Does Keith Lee get the next shot? Does Tommaso Ciampa get the next shot? Or does Johnny Wrestling get the next shot? It's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens as we kind of move forward here. I think Johnny Gargano has some unfinished business with Finn Balor, but we'll see how this kind of plays out. Killian Dane versus Damian Priest was a good match. Could have been a little bit better if you asked me. I lost interest in the Kushida versus Cameron Grimes match. And the Io Shirai and the Santana Garrett match, I wasn't really invested in. I'll be honest with you, for large parts of NXT in the middle, I was bouncing back and forth to AEW. The Pete Dunne, Travis Banks match was solid, but what I was really there for and what I was really, really invested in is my new favorite wrestler, and that's Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley took on Shayna Baszler in a fantastic match, in a match that felt so important, and it really felt like it was a pay-per-view quality match. This match was awesome. It really helped establish and build upon the legend that is becoming Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley at one point in the beginning of this match kicked Shayna Baszler in the chest, and Baszler looked so stunned. She sold it so well, sold it to perfection, and Rhea Ripley just sat there and kind of flexed on her a little bit. I thought this was an outstanding match. The horsewomen ended up getting involved, throwing Ripley into a ring post, kind of banging up her shoulder a little bit. Baszler ends up coming out of the ring to throw her back into this ring post. Next thing you know, Baszler's got her in her finishing move, and she's trying to force Ripley to pass out. And Ripley keeps reaching down deeper and deeper. flipping over on her hands and knees and crawling to the ropes, only to, just as she grabs it, being pulled away and pulled back into the middle of the ring. This happened 3 times, if I recall correctly. At one point, she looked like she was fading and she was going to fade fast. And I started yelling at the TV. I was so invested in this match, I started yelling at the TV. And she ends up grabbing the referee by the collar. I got so pumped. I got so jacked. I was standing up. I was yelling at the TV. I was screaming. I was ready for it. Next thing you know, Ripley ends up getting Baszler off of her, ends up throwing her towards the ring, towards the corner, and she bumps the referee. And right then and there, I was like, great. Baszler's going to end up winning this. There's going to be a chair involved. Next thing you know, Baszler's on the outside. There's a chair involved. The chair ends up getting brought into the ring where Rhea Ripley ends up taking a DDT on the chair. And I was like, God damn it. Like, it's all over here. Like, it's done. It is done. No, somehow she kicks out. She kicks out of this. She takes a knee to the face from Baszler, sends her into a ring corner. Next thing you know, Baszler has her up, sitting on top of the top rope. And all of a sudden, Rhea Ripley starts coming to, fights her way out of it, and gives a riptide off the second rope for the 1, 2, 3. I jumped up in the air. I did a spinneroonie on the ground. I was pumped. I was so excited. This was a fantastic match. Like, when I tell you it was a incredible match, this was the best match of wrestling that we've had going back to last Friday. Nothing compared to this one match.
No doubt about it. It felt special because of the fact that everyone came out. Rhea Ripley is the it person. She's somebody that is the person that you can say, okay, she's going to carry NXT, in the foreseeable future. And all credit to Shayna Baszler. She had a great year run there, and overall NXT did a great job. And I think that's why when we reflect on the ratings, that's why they won, because they built up the show. You start off, unbelievable start off in NXT with Johnny Gargano kind of setting up a feud with Finn Balor. It was a great way to set it up. They promoted it. It was a great match that delivered, and then you have this new title change that everyone got excited about. So overall, NXT caught my attention. I stuck with it, and I DVR'd AEW. That's the way it was. Overall, I felt like when we started talking about AEW, a little bit sloppy, especially the Cody Rhodes match was, really disappointing. It was not good at all. And I looked at it and I said, wow, right now, NXT, they said, okay, we're going to go head-to-head in basically our season finale. And here it was. And NXT was awesome. And Rhea Ripley, I can't wait to see what they do with her.
Yeah, NXT was great. I thought Rhea Ripley shined. She awesome. Reminds me a little bit of Becky Lynch, right? A little bit, there's a little bit of raw talent there. And there are some rough edges, but I think over time they'll get ironed out and she will become a much, much more complete competitor. She's fantastic right now, only 23 years old, NXT champion. I was impressed. I was really impressed. Talking about AEW, I thought we had a really great opening match with the Lucha Brothers and Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. I love Pentagon Jr. and I love his antics early in the match. I thought this was awesome. I thought what they set up here is, as you're starting to see the cracks in the foundation between Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, the only problem I have with it is, to me, it feels a little bit too soon, and you feel like the announcers are really, really pushing this a lot. Like they're always making mention of it. It's a much better story when it happens organic, or if it feels like it happens organically, not when it's getting crammed down your throat. And I feel like the announcers are doing a really poor job of trying to sell this, and it just doesn't feel organic. It feels very forced, which I'm not a huge fan of. I really felt like we were going to get an outstanding match with the Darby Allin, Cody Rhodes teaming versus the Bunny, Blade, and the Butcher. However, this was such a sloppy match. It felt like a botch fest. It was pretty brutal. I mean, Darby Allin missed a tope going through the second and third rope and ended up catching his foot, and he just kind of fell onto the floor. It was a mess, man. It wasn't good. I don't think Cody Rhodes looked exceptionally well in this match. And this could just be one of those things where there's no chemistry with the other guys, right?
Exactly.
Like, nobody has chemistry in this ring, and it's just going to be one of those things. But Cody Rhodes has had incredible matches all year long. He has really carried large parts of AEW, especially with his in-ring work. Darby Allin, at times, has looked absolutely fantastic. He's a fan favorite for a reason. This match felt like it could have been much bigger, much better than what we got. And to me, it just fell way flat, fell way short. I didn't think it was very good.
I was like, oh my gosh. There's agents that book the match. You got to go out there and deliver. And I'm not certain why that would happen now, especially, did you hear that Chris Jericho basically called out the locker room and said, a few weeks back, he said, look, our honeymoon period's over. We got to step up now because NXT has caught up. The 6-week window where AEW was the hot shit and everyone was like, oh, this is great. Now people are going, whoa, NXT, let's peek over there. There's some interesting storylines. There's some great matches. There's some excitement. And so AEW's got to step it up because the mistakes are starting to catch up in terms of some small things with the tag team and basically playing fast and loose with the rules in the ring and certain storylines that kind of maybe miss a little bit and things like that. So AEW's got to continue to fine-tune things and put out a good product, a good wrestling product. You can have great personality, but at the end of the day, if guys like Darby Allin are going to be pushed and they have botch fest matches, that's not good at all.
No, absolutely.
You got to correct that ASAP. You got to work the psychology. You got to have moments, and you got to have good matches consistently. Not just one week, not just one performance a month. You got to show out. You can't do that.
Yeah. Our main event for AEW, because after this botch fest, it really slowed down. Felt like a bit of a clunker of a show for me. Our main event was the Young Bucks versus SCU for the tag team titles. It was a good match, as you'd expect. SCU ended up retaining, but at the end of the match, the Dark Order and all of their creepers surrounded the ring. They introduced 2 of their new members. They ended up taking out everybody who challenged them. The Black Order introduced John Silver and Alex Reynolds as 2 of their newest members. I don't know if this was necessarily the time for this, because what you had the Young Bucks and SCU in a really, really solid match, and I think you were kind of building upon a story that is there. You know what I'm saying? This tag team feud goes back to their tournament when they're trying to name the very first tag team champion in AEW. They have a bit of a history, and I feel like this whole thing with the Dark Order just kind of took away from this, and I don't think it did the Dark Order any favors. It just felt poorly timed. I didn't really like it too much. I think we both are in agreement. NXT gets the point this week.
NXT, better show. AEW's got to step it up, especially now. 2020 is going to be an amazing year. NXT is not going to go away. Week in, week out, AEW's got to put out good content, good wrestling, and they got to start bringing in, maybe in the coming months, around February, March, some new talent will eventually shift over. I think
don't be surprised.
Yeah, don't be surprised, especially when you're starting to see some things on social media that some old talent from the WWE may, migrate over to AEW, and it'll be a good time. But the end of AEW. But the end of the year for AEW wasn't as good as it needed to be. NXT wins the week in the ratings by a lot. 12% decrease for AEW. It kind of shows that NXT did a good job marketing it, and they delivered, and people said, whoa, go. They did their group stuff, and maybe they're on Flick Chat saying, hey, put on NXT. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people delivered, and they did go over to USA and watch NXT, and it was a good show. So hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What you got this week?
So at the TLC pay-per-view, Kairi Sane was injured, and WWE has pulled her from the post-Christmas shows as she recovers. WWE has yet to elaborate on what the actual injury is and what her status is moving forward. It doesn't look good. After the match, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch both praised her on Twitter. It looks like it was a move gone wrong at the TLC pay-per-view. Former longtime WWE writer Chris DeJoseph reportedly is returning to WWE Creative.
Long time back.
That's right. This is according to PW Insider. He worked for WWE as a writer from 2004 to 2010, but he can mostly be remembered for his best work, which was as a co-executive producer for Lucha Underground. DeJoseph was a key figure in presenting some of the most unique and exciting wrestling ever produced, especially if you were a fan of Lucha Underground. First reported on WWE Backstage, the Street Profits have agreed to a multi-year extension with WWE.
More smoke, baby!
That's right. At this time, it's unknown what the terms of that agreement are. Also, Kofi Kingston signed a 5-year extension with WWE. He said that he knows where his body's at, and he knows what he wants to do and what he wants to accomplish. That's why he's staying with WWE. While recovering from his leg injury, Jeff Hardy's contract with WWE has reportedly been frozen. WWE has the ability to do this when competitors are out. It's a way for them to essentially extend the contract without necessarily having to pay the talent. It's kind of a weird loophole in WWE's contracts. It's a way to hold guys up, essentially. According to Sean Rossap of Fightful, Hardy is working his way back from the injury while addressing personal and legal issues stemming from a July arrest from a public intoxication, and in October, he was arrested for driving while impaired. As we reported a few weeks ago, Matt Hardy's contract is set to expire in April, while Jeff will have to wait some time due to this contract being frozen. While Jeff Hardy deals with his alcohol issues and all of the legal issues that kind of come with that, Jimmy Uso was found not guilty of drunk driving in Pensacola, Florida. This stems back from an arrest that was made in July. And that's this week's wrestling news and notes for the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.
Who do you think, before we get out of here, who do you think had the best week? Which talent do you think, besides maybe Rhea Ripley, because obviously when you get a title, it's a good week. Do you think it's Seth Rollins? Do you think it's the likes of Chris Jericho, who continues to just show out and really have a dominant performance? Who do you think was the wrestler of the week in your mind? Someone that just really stood out.
Besides Rhea Ripley, because I thought
by
she
far,
was by far, hands down, she was the best.
I think she probably in most power rankings is going to be one or two because of the fact that, hey, you got a title and she's the talk of the wrestling world.
I would do this. I would put it this way. I would say what I got from the Lucha Brothers in their match, I was
impressed,
so entertained and so impressed. Also, this new version of Seth Rollins, I'm digging it. I'm kind of into it. I like the dicky heel nature that he's portraying, and I like the way he's carrying himself right now, especially with AOP as his heaters. I think it's fantastic. So I would go Rhea Ripley, obviously, number one, heads and tails, and then I'd go Lucha Brothers, and then I would go Seth Rollins.
Good week for wrestling, a lot to get to, and I think that the end of 2019 will be definitely interesting for all the companies involved. A really great end to the year for sure in terms of all the wrestlers, in terms of the storylines, and no doubt about it, the number one thing that we wanted was NXT to push AEW and AEW to push NXT, and that's what we're getting. Really, at this point in time, Raw and SmackDown kind of feel like the background shows because of what's going on, and it's kind of unfortunate, but I do think that the storylines are evolving, and heading into the Royal Rumble, the WWE generally does a good job. Thumbs up, thumbs down, a little bit of underground rumors with photos and kind of that, backroom dirt sheet Sting Undertaker. You want to see it?
Yeah.
You want to see Sting Undertaker in their 50s and 60s and how old they are?
I mean...
You still want to see a quick 8-minute match? The entrances?
I just want the entrances. That's all I really want.
I don't even think I want a match. You know what? Just have a stare down and maybe just a segment.
Look, I don't think it would be good.
All right.
But it would be a callback for sure. Like if we could get this at WWE is doing Starrcade again, right? If we could get this at Starrcade.
The show already happened, Starrcade, the house show, yeah.
Oh. How long ago was that?
2 weeks ago.
How did I miss this?
It was a glorified house show. They aired like one thing on the network.
How did I miss this?
It's just a terrible event that they air. It gets worse every year it wasn't good. And more of Lashley and Rusev, and it wasn't all that good.
How the hell did I miss this?
Check it out. Check it out on the network.
You said it was bad, so I don't really need to check it out.
Yeah, it was
but I'm just wondering how I missed that.
Yeah, Sting.
Where
Undertaker.
was I? Oh, well, my life was falling apart someplace else. That's why. It's why I missed it. My bad. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, I just want the entrances. That's all I really want.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily need to see them wrestle. I would love to see a Scorpion Death Drop and a Scorpion Deathlock. And I would love to see Undertaker. I mean, you don't need to see a Tombstone Pile Driver because there's a good chance that Sting would never come back from because he would slip and break his neck. So,
want to thank the fine sponsor of this broadcast, the Flick Chat application. If you're a big fan of professional wrestling, definitely go to your favorite app store, whether it be the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, and download Flick Chat. And within moments, you'll be entered into Detroit Sports' newest headquarters. All you got to do is hit that little plus button when you download Flick Chat and then enter all lowercase DSP, and boom, it's a great sports forum where you can talk about Detroit sports. We watch all the shows live, and we're chatting and talking about the angles and talking about all the great happenings in professional wrestling. So if you're a fan of professional wrestling, make sure you download the Flick Chat application. Definitely a fun time with all the crew there that are watching each and every week. And I look forward to talking to you next week, cuz when we can preview the Smackdown that's going to air and take place live from Little Caesars Arena right here in Detroit, Michigan.
Absolutely, brother. Should be a good show. Maybe.